The Guardians and the War on Truth are Time's 2018 Person of the Year. 4 Person of the Year covers will be released, each featuring one or more journalists who have sacrificed their freedom and, in some cases, their lives to bring truth to the world. Joining us this morning is Time's Europe correspondent, Simon Schuster. Simon, thank you so much for being here. If you could, take us through who were featured on these 4 covers and what did they do to earn the title of Person of the Year?
Well, they all feature in the same kind of story and the same phenomenon that we've been witnessing throughout the year. The 4 is of course, Jamal Khashoggi, who really dominated the headlines, over the last few months. The Saudi journalist who was brutally murdered in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. We all know his story, and he really brought the world's attention to the plight of journalists and the attempts, often gruesome attempts, by authoritarian regimes to silence journalists. But we also wanted to highlight, colleagues of his and of ours around the world, in Myanmar, in the Philippines, and at home in the United States, in Annapolis, Maryland, where 5 journalists were killed in a mass shooting in the Capital Gazette newspaper in Annapolis. So we take a very global look, and we've included those 4. But I mean, it's important to remember that they represent, many of our colleagues. 52 journalists have been murdered in 2018 alone so far. So this is a bigger story than just the 4 that are represented on the covers.
Let's take a step back and look at the short list. Some of the other people that were considered were U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller, Black Panther Director Ryan Coogler, the Duchess of Sussex Meghan Markle. So what put the Guardians over them, over the top in the eyes of Time magazine?
Well, Time magazine is very much an international magazine, so we felt that this particular story affected the most people, would really touch the lives of people in the most countries where we report and where we have readers. I think some of the other candidates were fascinating and extremely impactful throughout the year. Robert Mueller in the United States is still a major force in Washington politics. But I think what really made the editors of Time focus on the Guardians and the War on Truth is that it's such a global story that's been resonant throughout the year.
And Simon, I've got to ask, in choosing journalists, your magazine has chosen sort of colleagues. They've chosen, in a lot of ways, themselves. The Time magazine is as much a defender of truth and a promoter of truth as any of the people who are represented on the cover. That to me seems like a unique experience here and now this year.
Yeah, it was unique and a bit awkward for me personally. I know that starting out in journalism, I was always taught by my editors that the journalist is never the story. This is sort of hammered into the heads of reporters from very early on. And this made this a particular challenge and a unique challenge working on this piece because, I was put in a position traveling around Europe and interviewing colleagues that have faced jail time, that have faced violent attacks. The reason is we felt this year that the journalist really was thrown into the spotlight in a way that they hadn't been before. And what I heard from the colleagues I spoke to is that, yes, it is uncomfortable for us to be in the center of the frame, but that's not our choice. It's these authoritarian leaders that we report on. It's these corrupt regimes that we report on. They're the ones who have pointed at us and said, you're the fake news, you're the enemy of the people. And therefore, we felt that it was our responsibility to, point the lens at them and give them a say.
Simon, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to reading the article later today.
Thank you.